Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are digging into well, a really unexpected source, a collection of excerpts titled The Genius of Imperfect Ideas.
Hmm.
And our mission here is to take a deep analytical look at a success story that, on the surface, it sounded completely ridiculous.
It really did.
We're talking about an idea that was so simple, so counterintuitive, that most people just called it dumb. But we're here to pull out the practical wisdom hidden inside it.
It's such a compelling case study. It's about how real innovation often happens at this intersection of desperation and just thinking differently.
Right.
We always focus on these huge, complex ideas, but the sources today show that sometimes the smallest, least committed idea is the one that solves the biggest human
In
problem.
the emotional journey, right? That's what we're looking at.
Exactly. Recognizing and moving past that internal resistance, that's always the hardest part.
So the specific figure we are zeroing in on, the heart of our source material, is an interview with a woman named Sophia Martinez. She's a community organizer, and her story is this perfect little roadmap for turning an unlikely idea into something, well, meaningful.
And it's so important to remember her context, which she really emphasizes in the interview. Sophia didn't come from a traditional background, business or academia.
She didn't finish college.
Right. She didn't finish college. This is pure grassroots innovation, and it's driven by necessity. Her success wasn't built on, market research or seed funding.
Not at all.
It was built by solving a really personal and super relatable problem for her and her community.
Okay, so let's establish that problem first. What was the specific pain point that kicked this whole thing off? Because it sounds like she was drowning in that modern feeling of being chronically overwhelmed.
That's it, exactly. Sophia was grappling with everything: work, family, life. And when she tried to do something for herself, like reading, which she loved,
It just became another source of stress.
yes, she realized she was always starting books, buying them with the best intentions, but almost never finishing them.
Oh, that feeling of looking at your stack of unread books.
Mm.
It's this constant reminder of what you haven't done.
And it wasn't just, a time management thing. It triggered these really profound feelings of guilt, of incompetence, even isolation. She felt perpetually incomplete.
Like she was failing at relaxing.
Right. And when she looked at joining a normal online book club, she just dismissed it. She said, and I'm quoting here, "I could never keep up."
It just felt like another homework assignment I was guaranteed to fail.
That quote is just so powerful. It frames these traditional structures as like failure traps.
Yeah, if the system requires a high commitment, it just makes the guilt worse for someone who's already busy. It puts all the pressure on you to manage your time better, which is the one thing you don't have.
Which is exactly why the solution had to be so radical in its simplicity and in its lack of commitment. If the problem is guilt over not finishing,
Then you have to get rid of the idea of finishing altogether.
or at least redefine it. And that brings us to the birth of her idea. It really did start as a joke.
Which is where the best ideas often come from, right?
Absolutely. She joked with her friends about starting a book club for people who, well, never finished the book.
I love that.
And she structured it so the barrier to entry was basically zero. They'd meet, and the only requirement was that everyone had to read, or at least try to read, just the first chapter. That's it.
It's the whole obligation.
Yep.
The genius isn't in the reading, it's in the non-reading. You get the social connection, the intellectual buzz from the first chapter.
But without the 300-page weight of obligation.
Exactly. She described the first meetings as just fun and free. And that feeling, that psychological relief, that became the actual product.
It's the ultimate emotional shortcut. It bypasses that huge internal hurdle of, obligation and failure. They weren't there to prove how smart they were.
They were just there to connect.
Yes, over a shared passion for starting a story. Low stakes, non-judgmental.
But okay, once she decided to take this idea beyond her own friend group, that's when the friction started. What was the big criticism?
Oh, just skepticism. Total dismissal, really. When she started talking about it more widely, people, especially, serious readers, thought the concept was pointless.
Why bother having a book club if you encourage people not to read the book?
That was the question, yeah. It fundamentally challenged this idea that depth is the only thing that has worth.
And this is where the emotional side gets really deep. She wasn't some, bulletproof entrepreneur. She admitted she had this huge internal struggle.
A lot of self-doubt. She worried she was wasting everyone's time, even when the club started to slowly grow.
That self-doubt is so key, isn't it?
It is, because you have the external voices calling it pointless, but the internal voice is always louder. For someone who already feels like they don't have the traditional credentials,
Right.
to then challenge a big cultural thing like a book club, that creates massive imposter feelings. She felt like she didn't have the right to redefine it.
And the growth wasn't like some viral explosion at first.
Not at all. The sources detail these really specific, awkward setbacks. She had trouble finding members, and she said the early meetings were often pretty stiff.
Because people were still carrying that shame with them.
Absolutely. The atmosphere wasn't automatically free. Sophia had to consciously learn how to facilitate, how to manage the tone.
She couldn't let it slip back into that old judgmental space.
No, her biggest learning curve wasn't marketing or anything like that. It was mastering the art of keeping the conversation light, open, and focused only on those first impressions. She had to build that supportive environment first, brick by awkward brick.
So she pushes through all that, the awkwardness, the low attendance. She stabilizes the whole thing around this idea of low-stakes connection. And then something happens, this inflection point that just changes everything.
It was a local newspaper story. A reporter just picked up on how unconventional the club was.
And that one piece of media, that external validation, it just acted like a catalyst.
It did. Instantly, all that skepticism from outsiders, it was replaced by this sense of validation for everyone who had been secretly feeling that same book guilt.
That's the difference between a good idea and a movement, right? Suddenly people from all over the city and then beyond, they wanted in. They realized, oh, I'm not the only one.
I'm not the only one who's ashamed of my half-read books. It gave people permission to enjoy reading again just without all the baggage.
It created a space for this sort of shadow behavior, this thing we all do but never talk about, starting things we can't finish.
And the newspaper article basically put up a huge sign saying, this space exists and your secret failure is actually a shared human experience.
So, okay, the demand explodes. She can't possibly handle it all herself in a coffee shop.
Right.
What were the specific strategies she used to scale this thing up while keeping that, intimate, non-judgmental feeling?
They focused on accessibility.
Yeah.
And leveraging things that were already there in the community. So first, they quickly set up online meetings. That solved the geography problem right away. But the most insightful move, and this is something we really need to analyze, was partnering with local libraries.
Now that is fascinating. Why would a library and institution built on reading the whole book partner with a group that only reads the first chapter?
Because the value for them was tapping into a group of people they were missing. Libraries are always looking for ways to bring in people who feel intimidated by, the whole idea of capital L literature.
So the chapter-only club was a gateway.
A completely non-intimidating gateway. It attracted people who loved the idea of books but felt too stressed to commit. For the library, it was all about activation, not full consumption.
That totally reframes the library's role. It's not just a warehouse for books, it's a community launch pad.
Okay, and what about the authors? How did she get authors who spend years on a book to join a meeting where people only read the intro?
The pitch was just brilliant. It focused on the utility of the first chapter.
Ah.
Authors need to know if their opening hook actually works. They need feedback on the pacing, the world building, all of it before a reader commits. So the club was like a focus group for the most important part of their work.
Exactly. It gave them access to low stakes, real-time feedback from an engaged audience. It was a win-win.
That completely transforms the whole thing. It's not about a requirement anymore. It's this mutually beneficial exchange.
Precisely. It became a supportive community for book lovers that just deliberately took away the parts that lead to shame. It's not a book club, really. It's a guilt-free reading movement.
Okay, let's shift to the internal costs. Because even with this rapid, unconventional success, the sources make it clear that the emotional journey was still pretty tough. She talked a lot about imposter syndrome.
That feeling is just so common, especially for non-traditional innovators. Success in our society is so often measured by, venture capital or academic degrees or formal industry approval.
She had none of that.
None. Her success was purely grassroots, community-driven. So she questioned if it even counted. She worried, if it was this easy, does it even have value? That self-doubt doesn't just vanish because a newspaper writes a nice story.
But the breakthrough for her, the thing that got her past that imposter feeling, it wasn't a business metric.
No, it was purely relational.
It was seeing the people,
Absolutely. The real payoff wasn't some external validation. It was seeing people connect, share this shame they'd been hiding, and then leave the meetings feeling lighter. That experience of collective vulnerability, that's what made it all worth it.
So if we're going to distill Sophia's experience down into some core practical wisdom for you, the listener, what are the big takeaways?
First and foremost, I think it's structural. It's don't be afraid to design a system that works for your authentic, messy self, not the idealized person you think you should be.
There's no right way to enjoy a hobby.
Not at all. The goal is enjoyment and connection. And if you have to lower the bar to the floor to get that, then do it.
And secondly, related to the movement part of it, the value of an idea is measured by its ability to connect people, not by how complicated it is.
Yeah. If your idea, no matter how weird or small, solves a hidden psychological pain point and brings people together, well, that's the definition of value.
Ultimately, this whole story shows that the power of her idea was in solving this hidden emotional problem, the shame over incompleteness. She didn't invent some new tech.
She invented psychological relief through reduced commitment.
It really shows that low commitment can lead to high connection. That dumb idea wasn't about intellectual failure. It was a mechanism for emotional freedom, for building a community around being vulnerable.
It's just a profound lesson in listening to your own needs and recognizing that if you need a solution that doesn't exist, chances are thousands of other people need it too.
That shared need is the foundation.
It is.
So as you move forward and think about your own projects, a side hustle, a creative pursuit, whatever, remember Sophia Martinez.
Sure.
Your next big success might start with an idea that seems laughable to the establishment,
Give that idea permission to exist. See what kind of connection it unlocks.
which raises an important question for you to think about.
Mhm.
Where in your life are you sacrificing joy for some arbitrary self-imposed rule about commitment?
How many meaningful things, learning a language, starting a workout, a creative habit, could start right now if you just gave yourself permission to do it the wrong way?
Think about where a little flexibility might unlock not just resilience, but community.
That permission right there, that's the real leap of faith.